So in last class, we have completed object design models and relations. In relations, we have some questions I have asked you. Hope you remember. Okay. Now moving today, object-oriented programming principles. Okay, tell me, these are the questions you need to understand as part of this topic. What is object-oriented programming principle? Why object-oriented programming principle? How many object-oriented programming principles are there? There is a confusion actually. What is an abstraction? Is it not OOP principle? What are the four pillars of object-oriented programming? Two questions we'll get. How many OOP principles? What are four pillars of object-oriented programming? So there's a small confusion actually. So you have to be very careful in answering this question. If you don't implement these four pillars of object-oriented programming, is there any problem? Okay. And what is the difference between object-based programming language, object-oriented programming language? Explain all four pillars of object-oriented program with a difference, definition, and examples. Okay, let's start. Tell me, object-oriented programming is meant for creating real-world objects in programming world. Okay, so repeating again. Object-oriented programming is meant for creating real-world object in programming world. After creating real-world object in programming world, this object is going to be accessed by other objects, nothing but user object. Try to understand. I have created ATM machine in the programming world. Now this ATM machine is going to use by customer. Now this customer can directly go and take the cash. No, he cannot take the cash directly. Then now once you create object, this object is using by another object. Now that another object must provide protection. So once you create an object, your object data should not be accessible by another object directly. If your object data accessing by another object directly, then there is no security. Anyone can access your object data. Okay, you are losing security. So tell me, what the solution to this problem? You must apply one OOP principle there. Okay, next. Now, this object ATM is an object, but there are so many different types of ATMs are there. Different banks ATMs are there. HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank, Kotak Bank, SBI Bank. Okay, there are so many banks ATMs are there. Then how can I represent main ATM and subtype ATMs? I want to create all these 5 ATMs as one type. There I have to apply another OOP principle called inheritance. Okay, if you want to stop other object to access your object data directly, you must apply one OOP principle called encapsulation. Okay, you must apply one OOP principle called encapsulation. Next, if you wanted to group multiple objects as the same type, if you want to group multiple objects as the same type, then you have to use another OOP principle called inheritance. Next, tell me, this customer is accessing withdraw operation on ATM. Now this ATM withdraw operation must execute from HDFC Bank ATM, ICICI Bank ATM, and Kotak Bank ATM. That means the withdraw method must define in all subtypes of this ATM. So creating same method in all subclasses is nothing but one more principle, that is called polymorphism. So stopping other object to access your object data is encapsulation. Creating multiple objects as one group to tell they are belongs to same type, we apply one OOP principle called inheritance. And then now we wanted to make sure the same method is implemented in all three classes, all three subtypes or 4 subtypes, then that is called what? Polymorphism. Now who will guarantee this? Who will guarantee that withdraw method is defined in all 3 classes with the same signature? If a signature is changing, a customer cannot access that operation. If you want to execute withdraw method from any of the class, the signature of the method in all three classes must be same. If a signature is changing, then it cannot be executed from those classes. So who will guarantee? Who will guarantee that the signature of the method in all classes will be same? For that, somebody should force. The forcing mechanism is called abstraction, abstract method. In a super class ATM, we must declare a withdraw method. Then the withdraw method is implementing all three subclasses. Declaring in super class, declaring method in super class is nothing but what? Abstraction. Everyone understand? Customer, okay? Customer will, okay, customer is not allowed to access the data of the ATM directly. We should apply encapsulation. Customer accessing withdraw method, that method should execute from any of the subclasses. So super class must force the method to implement in all subclasses, that is abstraction. Then now we should say all these three types of our ATM of type ATM, then we should go for inheritance. And then in subclasses, we are going to implement that method withdraw, that is called polymorphism. So totally how many principles we have to develop to complete our project, creating real world objects in programming world by achieving security and to execute methods from different subclasses. Totally 4 principles you have to develop. Number 1, encapsulation. Number 1, abstraction. Number 2, polymorphism. Number 3, inheritance and encapsulation, or you can say encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism and abstraction. So tell me, what is a WOOP principle? What the meaning of principle? Principle means a rule or a suggestion. A rule or suggestion to perform one operation is nothing but principle. Object oriented programming principle is nothing but a rule or suggestion that provides, a rule or suggestion that is meant for achieving security to object data, and a dynamic binding between user class object and subclass objects is nothing but object oriented programming principle. Okay, principles are rules or guidelines meant for running some business smoothly. Object oriented programming principles also rules or guidelines for developing a real world object in programming world by achieving security to object data, dynamic binding between has a relation user object and subtype objects in accessing operation from different subclasses of an object. For example, the object ATM contains cash. As a customer, we must not take that cash directly. That cash must be hidden from us from direct access and must allow us to take cash only via card swiping. This way of accessing object data is called providing security to object data. One of the WOOP principles, encapsulation, provides guidelines to hide data from direct access from user programmer and provide security to object data. Next, in ATM, we can perform withdraw operation by using any ATM, any bank ATM card. Based on the card we swipe, ATM automatically reads card information, this card linked bank information, our bank information, bank balance, and then performs withdraw operation dynamically from different bank based on the ATM card we swipe. This style of execution is called what? Dynamic binding. The other WOOP principles, inheritance, polymorphism, will provide suggestions to achieve dynamic binding between user object and subtype objects. Hope you got clarity now. What is WOOP principle? Why WOOP principle? Okay, what is WOOP principle? Yes, a rule or guideline. Why WOOP principle? To achieve security and dynamic binding. What the meaning of security? Which WOOP principle? What the meaning of dynamic binding? Which WOOP principle? Okay, please write down these points not there in your material. Write down these notes. Yeah, completed. Okay, right. Completed. Okay. So hope you got clarity on what is a WOOP principle, right? And tell me, how many WOOP principles are there? Encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction are the three WOOP principles. Abstraction actually not WOOP principle. All people are telling abstraction is also WOOP principle. Okay, how many WOOP principles? We have only three WOOP principles. They are encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism. Then what is an abstraction? Abstraction is not WOOP principle. Abstraction is object design principle. Okay, object design principle. So it will come in the object design phase, not in the development phase. By using abstraction, we don't write any code. By using inheritance, encapsulation, polymorphism, we are writing code. So WOOP principles are object development principles. Abstraction is object design principle. Okay. If interviewer asks a question, how many WOOP principles are there? You know, from one website to another website, the number is changing. Okay, some people say 3, some people say 4, but officially 3 WOOP principles are there: encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism. And if people are asking what are the object-oriented programming pillars, then we have 4 pillars, including abstraction. Okay, you can simply people call it as a API: abstraction, polymorphism, inheritance, and encapsulation. Okay, you can tell in the order: encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction. Reverse order you tell to interviewer. Okay, then if you don't develop WOOP principles, is there any problem? Obviously problem will be there. Now if you don't develop encapsulation, other object can access my object data directly. If you don't develop inheritance, individual classes, okay, Same type of subtypes, we cannot make them as a group, and we cannot guarantee method development with the same signature. Hence, there is no security, there is no dynamic binding. Dynamic binding is nothing but extending the project. Extending project is nothing but scalable. So I have project. Now this project I want to add with multiple functionality, that is called scalable. So if you don't develop OOP principle, there is no security and project is not scalable. Okay, no security, no scalability. Are you catching my point? Please write down these points. How many OOP principles? 3. These 3 are object development principles. What is an abstraction? Is it not OOP principle? It is not OOP principle. It is an object design principle. It is meant for designing, not for developing. What are the OOP pillars? If they ask, 4. And if you don't implement those OOP principles, is there any problem? Yes. Project is not secured and not scalable. Write down from 4th point onwards. Completed? Right. So then there is another point we need to understand. There are 2 types of languages: object-based programming languages, object-oriented programming languages. So what is the meaning of object-based programming languages? In the program, we will use objects, but we cannot create objects. We cannot write program by using class. There are some languages which work on object, but we don't work on object. What do you call? We cannot create object by ourselves. We cannot create class ourselves. That is object-based programming language. For example, JavaScript. And next, object-oriented programming language means, okay, we can create objects. Inbuilt objects are there, and we can also create class. We can also create object. That is object-based programming language. That is Java. Okay. Now look at here. Difference between object-based programming languages and object-oriented programming languages. And next, is Java 100% object-oriented programming language? No, it is a 99%, 99.999% only object-oriented programming language. That 0.001 is not object-oriented programming language because it allows us to store data by using primitive data types. Everything should be part of object-oriented programming means everything should be object. But here we are using primitive data types to store. That's why it is not 100% object-oriented programming language. And the next, it allows us to store, it allows us to access private data by using reflection API. Okay, here encapsulation is failed. Encapsulation is telling that private data you cannot access. But by using JavaScript, by using reflection API, we can access private data. Next, it doesn't support multiple inheritance. One of the inheritance, multiple inheritance is not supporting. So what do you call, it is not 100% object oriented programming language. It is a 99.99% object oriented programming language. Okay, write down these points. These are all compulsory asking entry questions. Yeah. Is there any language that 100% object-oriented programming language? Yes, there is a language called Smalltalk. Smalltalk is 100% object-oriented programming language. Everything is in terms of object only will be there. Okay, fine. So then tell me, if Java is 99.99% object-oriented programming language, that 0.0001% not object-oriented programming language, due to that, is there any problem? Okay, if I store data in primitive data types, is there any problem? No problem. If we provide access to the data with reflection API, any problem? No problem. Where you are using reflection API to access my data? Within the project. Within the project is, it's my wish, na? I am developing project. Within the project, I can access. It's my project, right? I'm not accessing other person project with my code. That's not possible. Other person code I cannot access, right? I can access within the project whenever I want. I can access. It's not it's okay. For example, ATM machine cash. The person who is putting cash inside ATM machine, at any time he can come and take that money back, because he's having authorization. He can access either directly or he can access via card, right? So unauthorized people are not accessing. Authorized people only using reflection API to access. And next, it doesn't support multiple inheritance. Not required multiple inheritance in Java. Okay, Java people doesn't require, Java language doesn't require multiple inheritance. That's why they eliminated it. If they're required, then they will provide solution to that problem. Okay, so due to these three problems, because Java not 100% object oriented programming language, there is no problem in application development. These are just points to be noted, just I given. Is it okay? So finally, this is the story about, all points about what is object oriented programming principle, why object oriented programming principle, how many are there, what is abstraction, what are the 4 pillars. If you don't implement, what is the problem, difference between object based programming language and object oriented programming language. Hope all you people got clarity on this topic. Then now let's try to start understanding each principle one by one. First one, let us understand encapsulation. Okay, what is encapsulation? Why encapsulation? Okay, I no need to tell this point. Already I have explained in object initialization time. I created one object. I want to initialize that object. How many ways we can initialize? 4 ways. Directly by accessing the variable, by using setter method. Number 2, using constructor. Number 3, using blocks. If I access directly by its name, I told you 4 problems are there. Problem number 1, same logic I should write in every class in the project, code redundancy. Number 2, anyone can access my object data, data security is missing. Problem number 3, wrong values can be stored. Okay, right. Try to observe now here. What is encapsulation? I have bank account object. Now this bank account object contains some properties: account number, account holder name, balance, username, password. So now these 5 properties, okay, now customer is trying to access directly to store value, directly accessing to read value. Okay, directly accessing and directly reading to store value. It is a wrong approach because loss of data security. Anyone can access object data. Wrong values can be stored. Code redundancy. For every change, we must modify complete project, because these 5 variables I am accessing: first class, second class, third class, fourth class. In future, if you want to do changes in all places, I need to modify. So how to solve this problem? By implementing a concept called data hiding. So what is data hiding? Don't provide direct access. Okay, we must declare all fields as private. If we declare all fields as a private, customer cannot access directly. Then we got a concept called what? Data hiding. Then if I hide the data, for example, ATM machine you take, inside ATM machine we have cash. Now the cash, somebody is trying to take directly, don't want allow, so placed inside box and close the door. Hey, I am the valid customer of your bank. I have my money in your bank. I want access. This customer is an authorized person. By keeping unauthorized people, you declare these variables as a private. Nothing but you lock the door. But you must provide access to these authorized people. That is where we have to implement what? Encapsulation. Encapsulation is nothing but providing access to these variables via setter and getter methods. So now setter methods will have the code to store the data in these variables. Getter method will have the code to read values from this object. Are you following? Then tell me what customer will do now. Customer access setter method to store data. Customer will access getter method to read data. Inside a setter method, before accessing this data, can I write one if condition to verify this person is valid or not? Can I verify the given values are valid or not? Already catching my point. So customer, if you wanted to verify the given data valid or not, customer valid or not, we have to write some logic. That logic we are writing inside setter getter method. So tell me now how to develop encapsulation. To develop encapsulation, we should declare all fields as private and we should define setter getter method. Hence, then what customer will do? Customer create the bank account class object and he cannot access the fields directly by their name. He invoke setter method to store values, invoke getter method to read values. Everyone understand that? So first we write this diagram. First write this diagram, I'll give you definition of encapsulation. Completed? So now hope you got some idea. Setter getter methods are working as a guard to this object data from direct access. Okay, tell me what is encapsulation? Encapsulation is nothing but creating a class. Bank account is a class. Inside class we are creating variables and methods providing access to the variables via setter getter method for storing and reading data. Okay, so encapsulation is the process of wrapping or binding, variables and methods as a one unit by using class, and provide access to these variables only via publicly available setter and getter methods either for reading or modifying its data is called encapsulation. So what is encapsulation? Why encapsulation? Encapsulation is the one of the OOP principles, the process of wrapping up of variables and methods as one unit. Wrapping means covering, okay, by using a class and operating those variables only via methods either for reading or modifying values is called encapsulation. Then tell me, by developing encapsulation, what are you doing? By developing encapsulation, we are hiding the data from direct access and providing access via publicly available setter getter methods with proper validations. Okay, hence through encapsulation we will get security to object data. Why security to object data? Customer is not directly accessing. Not only that, these variables are accessing only via setter getter method na? In first class, second class, third class, fourth class, fifth class, these variables are accessing via setter method. That means code reusability. In future, if you want to modify the code, you are modifying the code inside setter method, inside bank class, that will not affect to other program. Hence through encapsulation we will get security to object data and reusability, centralized modification to object code. Okay, right on this slide. Okay. Yeah, good question. Isham has asked good question. I don't understand why reflection is allowed but not accessing data directly from the same project. Good question. Okay. Encapsulation is not only meant for stop accessing data from direct access or providing security, also for reusability. If you access variables directly in all places in the project, then in future if you want to modify, you need to modify in all places now. While accessing via setter methods, if you require to access them directly somewhere in the project, somewhere if you want to access directly, then you can go for what? Reflection API. Let's say there are some variables which doesn't have setter methods. For example, if you take array list, in array list, there is a variable called capacity variable. Capacity variable declared as a private, but there is no getter method. There is no setter method, there is no getter method. I want to get that value. I want to know how much capacity is growing. I want to know as per my project. So there I will use reflection API. Already understand Isam? Encapsulation not only providing security, also providing reusability and centralized modification. Okay, good question asked. Super. All the people understand encapsulation not only providing security, providing code reusability also. Okay, so this is the story about encapsulation, and now we need to write code for this. That we'll see in tomorrow class. Okay, have some small personal work. Tomorrow we'll continue remaining story. Okay, so up to here, please by heart and practice and come tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll complete the code and start inheritance also. Thank you everyone. Hope you understand today class clear. Thank you all. Bye.